evening, and welcome to another edition of Nevada County Interviews. I'm your host, Paul Minicucci, and tonight our guest is a noted local wildlife photographer, Eli Rush. Eli, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you, Paul.
And we're going to be talking to Eli about photographing wildlife, nature life and landscapes in rather extreme places, including the Amazon and in the Arctic wilderness in Alaska. And Eli is getting ready to go back up to Alaska for another trek. And he's been kind enough to bring us some photographs from his last trip, which are just outstanding, wonderful photographs. So Eli, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I want to know a little bit about you. So I understand you're not from these parts. Where'd you grow up?
Michigan.
Okay.
Detroit area.
And so you grew up in Detroit, and Eli was telling me how he first got into photography by way of summer camp.
Well, yeah, that's could connect that dot. I got into the wilderness via the summer camp.
Right.
And the wilderness bug bit me, and I've never been cured from that. So in my teens, in the 60s, I got my first taste of the wilderness in Ontario, in Canada. And in 1981, put together a trip into the Yukon territories of northern Canada. And as an afterthought, I came up with the idea that I should get some pictures of this wilderness trek that I was doing. I knew nothing about photography, really, but I knew that you needed a camera.
Right.
So I bought a camera and a little 35 millimeter and learned how to use it.
Right. And then you moved at some point from that into the camera you will show us today, 8x10 camera. So what caused you to go into that mode of photography?
Well, the more I photographed, the more my demands grew to produce a finer image. So it seemed obvious that the larger the film, the better image. So I stepped up from 35 to medium format, and then 4x5, which is a piece of film 4 inches by 5 inches, and then ultimately to the 8x10.
Right. And so the Yukon was your first extended trek into the wilderness. And I know eventually you went to the Amazon. How did you first decide to go to the Amazon?
It was just kind of a spur of the moment. It was just spontaneous. There was
most of us will say, let's go to Lodi, and
right.
It's about as good, but you decided, hey, let's go to Amazon.
Yeah, except it took a year after that that big idea to actually realize it. But once I had the idea, I wouldn't let go of it. And a good friend of mine, went with me, and that was a 500-mile paddling trip through northern Bolivia.
Well, and did you have a guide on that trip?
No.
We
went downstream.
Downstream, so you knew you would eventually end up in civilization.
Yeah.
And so what did you, so in the Amazon trip, were you principally looking for the wildlife or the flora and fauna of the place? I mean, what were you looking for as a photographer?
Again, that was early in my photographic life, and what I was looking for mostly was just the experience of the Amazon rainforest. I ended up taking hundreds and hundreds of photographs, and it was mostly landscape. It was hard to get wildlife.
Right. And so now when you take these trips, and they are rather extreme places, it's not the kind of place anyone would go. You're pretty much alone when you're out there and vulnerable to the elements. What are you thinking about? I mean, are you Are you experiencing, first and foremost, experiencing the wilderness and then you photograph it? Or are you looking for photographic possibilities and then those choices take you to different places?
Well, the longer I stay out in one place, the more I resonate with the place and the more intimate it becomes, and it affects the way I look at the place and feel the place, and what to photograph just becomes very obvious to me.
Mm-hmm. So it's quite a change going from the Amazon to the Arctic wilderness. How did you decide to do that?
I missed the north, the far north. I knew that there was this place called the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. I knew it was a very special place, and then I knew that I had to go see it.
Mm-hmm. What makes it special?
Well, the refuge, known as ANWR, is 20 million acres of roadless and trailless wilderness, and no one lives out there. And it is probably, you would call it, the poster child of wilderness on this planet. Mm-hmm. There's a herd of 170,000 caribou that roam through there, and grizzlies, wolves, eagles. It is just wilderness in its pristine condition.
So when you're out in this kind of wilderness, how vulnerable do you feel? Or not at all?
Well, the first time there, even though I hadn't seen any grizzlies, seen signs and tracks, and when I saw the first grizzly, I felt vulnerable. I didn't feel threatened, but I could feel my vulnerability because I realized it was totally in charge up there, but it also didn't seem very interested in me. Mm-hmm. So it was just an honor to see the thing.
And I know you said that at any given moment you feel like this is the most beautiful place you could be, and this is the most beautiful moment. And so the photography, I guess, is an attempt on your part to capture that? Is that?
Oh, yes, yeah. When I was there the first time, it took 3 days before I could decide what to photograph. I was just pretty much walking in circles with my mouth open wide. It was so beautiful. And it was pretty much the same every day for 4 weeks. I mean, just everywhere you looked, it was just unbelievable.
So now, if you're not using a digital camera, and you have some constraints here, you have a limited amount of negatives, plates. Is that right?
Well, for the 8x10, it's not so much plates. It's film, but
But you do have a limit.
Right.
Yeah. And so, how do you decide how many photographs you'll take, or is that predetermined, or you just keep shooting until you're sort of done with it and you've shot everything you could shoot?
Well, with the 8x10, I'm very, very decisive and thoughtful about what I photograph. And if there's a beautiful scene to be photographed, I normally take maybe 3 shots, maybe 2, because I trust my light meter and I trust my decisions.
Now we're going to take a look at some of your photographs in a little bit. And you do have photographs both in color and in black and white. Tell the viewers what's the difference in your mind, why some things are better photographed in black and white.
Well, the black and white shots, for me, I guess I would call them my true art form. And I print those in platinum and palladium, which is a style from the 1800s. One of the earliest styles of printing black and white. And it's done with literally platinum and palladium. And the grayscale and the tones you get with platinum and palladium is, there's nothing that can compare to that. And
Now, what camera do you use when you're doing color shots?
well, I'll use the big one. I have a reducing back that allows me to shoot 4x5 film.
I see.
I also will have a 4x5 camera, and I'll have a medium format, which is smaller than 4x5 and larger than 35. And this time I'll leave the 35 at home.
Okay.
And I will miss it
Yeah.
because it was the first camera.
Right. So let's take a look. We're going to take you on a photo journey of Eli in the Arctic National Wilderness, and Eli will tell us what we're seeing.
Well, that's my ride in and my ride out. That's the bush plane that will take me 200 miles from Coldfoot, Alaska, which is already above the Arctic Circle. 260 miles north of Fairbanks is Coldfoot. That's where I'll drive to, park my truck, get on the plane, fly 200 miles, get let out, and then paddle another 130 miles for 5 weeks. Okay, next. And this is from Google Earth, just to show you, give you an idea. If you can see where Alaska is at the top of North America, and right in the northeast corner of Alaska is where I will be, paddling north, almost all the way to the Arctic Ocean. Okay? And that's a closer shot of the area I'll be paddling through, and that's the topography of the Brooks Range, which is the Brooks Range is the last mountain range in North America, and it's about 700 miles wide, east to west across Alaska, and I'll be on the north slope, paddling north. And I'll be paddling out of the Brooks Range onto the Arctic flats, and you can see the river on the left where it fans out, and I'll be stopping right where it starts to fan out, and that's where the plane will come and pick us up. And that's a view from the plane coming into the Brooks Range.
Another view.
And that's my ride on the river. It's a 16-foot inflatable canoe, and
How does it get from the plane to the river?
I walk it. It may be a half a mile from where the plane drops us off to the river, maybe a little further. So there's a lot of walking of gear.
And you're alone on this trip?
No, I'll be with somebody.
And here you are setting up your 8x10?
Yeah, that's the 8x10. And that's obviously a black and white image.
Wow. It's wonderful differentiation of whites and grays.
Yeah, the grays are just, well, that's the platinum process.
Right. Now there's, that has some color in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, now we're back to the color shots.
Wow.
Yeah, and that water, you can't believe it's still liquid. It's so cold. I'll be in a dry suit while I'm paddling, in case I get thrown
And
out.
what accounts for the reds and greens that we're looking at?
That's the tundra changing color in August.
And what is the temperature during the day in this part of Alaska in the summer?
It can range from 40s to the 80s.
And of course, you don't get a lot of nighttime, even in August.
Right. You don't get a dark sky until like starting the last week in August.
So are these all shot during what we consider the normal day, or is it some of this at 10 o'clock at night?
Mostly morning and afternoon.
Uh-huh. That's an interesting shot. Doesn't have as much vegetation or water in it.
Right.
So what were you looking at when you're taking this shot?
Oh, just that incredible perspective of the sunlight hitting that mountain.
Right in the center of the...
Yeah.
Wow. I think that this is one of my favorite photographs here. The different
Okay.
grays and blues and rose almost.
Yeah. There was no shortage of mood and clouds up there.
There's an interesting shot. Is that a morning shot with the fog, or?
I actually don't recall when I shot that. You kind of lose track of time out there.
Right. And some of these shots look so bucolic, it's hard to believe that in a couple of months it'll be dangerously cold up there.
Yeah. It's a land of extremes.
Yeah.
That was about midnight when I photographed that in early August.
And that looks like sedimentary formation, is that right? Or
I believe so.
well, that's very interesting. Is that a particular mountain, or?
I don't know the name of that mountain. It must have one, but
Not necessarily in Alaska, though. When I was up there, I realized that there's big lakes that don't have any names.
right, yeah. Yeah, this is the tundra changing color in August.
Looks like you hiked up quite a bit up into that area.
Actually, that was right from my camp.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow. It's wonderful. Well, there's the aurora borealis.
Yeah, and that's the full moon that actually went into total eclipse that night.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How interesting.
And we didn't know that was about to happen until it started happening.
Uh-huh.
So that was, we got our money's worth.
Sure did. Is aurora borealis at particular times of the year only? Or?
Well, you need a night sky to see it.
Yeah.
They say it's, at its prime in the winter months, but
Right.
we got really lucky the end of August there.
And there's your last shot.
Yeah, those are wolf tracks.
What's the symbolic? Why do you like this as the last shot?
Just there's a mood about that. There's a wildness about that. The tracks almost tell a better story than the wolf itself. And but the wolves are up there. Can I
Sure.
say something about the caribou?
Yes.
The wolves need the caribou. The grizzlies need the caribou. The native peoples across Canada and Alaska subsist on the caribou. The caribou migrate over 3,000 miles every year across Canada and Alaska. And have their young on the Arctic plains, directly, exactly where the oil companies are proposing to drill.
Right.
And one reason I'm going up there is to photograph this place, to let people know that it's not just a beautiful place, it's a very important place. And
they need to see that. I think it's hard to
yeah.
imagine it until you do. And there's got to be places like that on the earth that we don't spoil. So
Yeah.
And we got about 5 or 6 minutes left. Eli, would you be good enough to tell us a little bit about your camera, which you brought into the studio?
All right. This is the beast. It's the 8x10 view camera. The film goes in the back with a special film holder, and obviously the front is where the lens is, and it's just a big box. And it's...
And so, what do you do in terms of a focus? I mean,
The focus is the bellows,
right.
and
So that's how you tell your depth of field is by...
yeah, and then there's adjustments on the lens, and this is how I release the shutter.
And you were telling me that shutter doesn't have much range in terms of what it can do. It's about a second.
Oh, it goes
exposure.
from a second to maybe 125th of a second, and I've never exposed anything that fast. They're usually all in the low range, like half a second, sometimes up to a minute. So it's a machine that requires a lot of thought and care. You can't just be firing off shots. You have to be very, very thoughtful and decisive.
Yeah, I take it the sun is at your back?
Not necessarily. Certainly it's not shining into the lens, but it could be on either side of me. Maybe it's not out at all.
And so could you get shots on, at 3 o'clock in the Alaskan night with this camera?
I could. If the lighting were conducive, all I need is a watch and hold on to this for 3 minutes.
Right. So now you say you're thoughtful and decisive when you're taking these pictures. What are you looking for? Or is it just what strikes you that this is a beautiful moment and so I'm just going to take the picture, or did you think about this a little bit as you go along?
Usually the image presents itself, and I think to myself, I have to get this. This is too beautiful to be true.
So you are trying to capture beauty.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the teaching of it would be just in the fact that these places exist, and you're bringing back these images for the rest of us to look at.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, Eli, why don't you get your seat back, and then I want to make sure we touch on you're going to have an event coming up at Mateo's. Is that
right?
correct?
Yeah, Mateo's Public in Nevada City on May 25th. Actually, I don't know the time yet, but it's going to be in the evening. So you can call me or.
Right. We have the number of Mateo's, and we have. I know we've shown Eli's email. So, are you going to be showing any of your work at Mateo's?
I'm not going to be bringing any photographs in. I may talk about it. It's going to be just kind of more of a party kind of atmosphere. I may bring a few images. Perhaps I'll do a short slideshow.
And so when is the takeoff day? When are you going to leave for Alaska?
I'll leave here mid-July. I have to be on the plane, weather permitting. July 26th is when I'm scheduled to fly in.
Mm-hmm. And does the plane drop food in, or do you have to haul that in yourself?
No, everything comes in on the first load.
Yeah, so you don't have any drops or anything.
Right.
Well, we're just about out of time. I wanted to thank you for sharing these photographs. They really, truly are wonderful, and for your perspective of taking us to places we wouldn't normally be, and for your message that folks, we've got to maintain the wilderness. It's not going to be here forever if we don't, and really should be here forever.
That's the message.
Mm-hmm.
That is the message.
Okay, I'm your host, Paul Minicucci, and my guest tonight was Eli Rush, photographer, wonderful wilderness shots. So that's about all we have time for this evening. I hope you stay tuned for us, our next show. We're going to be talking about traumatic brain injury again as part of our series. That's all we have time for tonight, so it's Paul Minicucci saying bye-bye.
This is you. You've been ripped off, or you've spotted a scam. Don't keep it to yourself. Take it to the Federal Trade Commission by filing a complaint. What kind of complaint? The Federal Trade Commission is the nation's consumer protection agency. So if a business doesn't deliver on its promises, or if someone cheats you out of your money, the Federal Trade Commission wants to hear about it.
I bought a phone card with 350 minutes of calling time, but it cut me off after 20.
I'm getting bills for things I didn't buy. I think someone stole my identity.
Letter said I'd won a sweepstakes, but I had to wire money to cover the taxes. I did, and never heard from them again.
I responded to an ad online for a free trial offer, but then I started seeing charges for it every month.
I thought the email was from someone who saw my resume and wanted to hire me, but they asked for my bank account number. I reported it to the Federal Trade Commission.
Telling the Federal Trade Commission helps us stop rip-offs, scams, and fraudsters. Your complaints matter here. To file a complaint, just go to ftc.gov/complaint. Click on the link to the Federal Trade Commission Complaint Assistant and answer the questions. Or call 1-877-FTC-HELP. That's all there is to it. If you've been ripped off or scammed, complain to the Federal Trade Commission. It can help put the bad guys out of business.
The open mic. So everyone has 5 minutes. 5 minutes or less. Less is cooler than 5. Keep that in mind. So we're going to start out with, all the way from San Francisco, Joe, you get 6 minutes. Joe Donahue.
A woman down at the Lunas, I read this, and she really liked it, and then she told me that the only 2 people her grandmother admired were her husband and Joseph Stalin. She was from Azerbaijan, very beautiful woman. The faint glow of dawn. When you feel like a bug decorating a windshield, it's Christmas time for death. A galaxy of insects reduced to parts. Don't worry, it's only temporary. If you feel like your dick is bigger than John Holmes, like you're more beautiful than Jean Harlow, don't get smug, it's only temporary. If Donald Trump has a legacy, it's a skyscraper tombstone with his name on it at the tip of Manhattan until he knock it down. And who remembers late night sweats remembering Paganini unless he was channeling something else, something big? This is a message from a lunar Soviet. It comes free of charge. Don't confuse with spam. There are some things that are constant. Economics, everything is hungry. Light in our world for the time being. The vulnerable shadow beneath the mouth of a beautiful woman. The collection of dust when the crowds have gone home. The ringing in your ears after an arresting sensation. The energy that cultivates the seed. You know, I've got about 4 minutes left, I think, maybe 3. Okay, this is about driving my cab. I am a cab driver and paying my way through nursing school, and so I've got a lot of stories. But anyway, I picked up this transvestite in the Tenderloin. I never know what to expect when I pick up in the Tenderloin. I probably shouldn't pick anybody up there after a certain hour, but it can be so interesting. One night, an old black man and a drag queen jumped in front of my cab in the intersection of Eddy and Hyde, and I could tell that they were both high, even by the liberal standards of the Tenderloin at 1 a.m. There are certain drunks that are never worth it, whether they be inebriated frat boys in the marina or inner-city freaks. They can't find their money, they'll puke on the floorboards, and they'll delay you from getting more lucrative fares. But I picked them up anyway. The transvestite got in and the black guy didn't. Most of my tranny fares are solid. They won't rob you or bullshit you, but I wasn't sure this person was even a transvestite, except for the classical definitions that they were a man with fake breasts and a dress. But unlike most of the drag queens in San Francisco, this individual didn't try too hard. It was the 5 o'clock shadow and the smell of screw top wine. How are you doing? I asked her. I'm fucked up, she said. The smell was pretty bad. I dropped her off at Divas on Post and Poke and imagined the smart, almost psychic trannies, one of the city's premier transgender locales, ripping this individual to pieces. Mark in exile, the one drunk you never let into your bar. They had a reputation to maintain, especially with the theoretically heterosexual middle-aged men who came to drink at Divas from all over the world. She took forever to get out, and the smell was worse than before. She slid slowly down the back seat to the passenger side exit. When she left, I looked into the back seat and saw that it was completely wet. Oh. Sweat? Oh. I hoped it was sweat. But the no bullshit part of me knew better. It was urine! Motherfucker, it was urine! As a trained EMT, I'm not supposed to be overly bothered by that, but this time I was. I looked up and saw my former passenger lift her dress and aim her big cock, still tucked in black panties through the waistband, out in front of the nightclub at the end of the bus stop. A sober she-male smoked a cigarette in the doorway and rolled her eyes, perhaps thinking something like, "Please, darling." Eyelids a flutter like Marlene Dietrich, but not too much so because that would have been obvious. I drove all the way to my house with the windows down, even though it was freezing, to fetch bleach and water. Fortunately, I was driving a cab with vinyl seats and not velour. The smell was more persistent than adolescent acne. Okay, there's about 3 more minutes. Do I have time for that?
Yep.
Okay. One time at Divas, a Latino drunk rolled into my cab. Right here, down here, there. When my patient is tired, I say, where do you want to go as an order? If you say it right, and I've learned this in the restaurant business, with your heart in it, you don't need a gun. Right here. We had gone half a block. Hey, baby, yeah, let's go party. A real stylish, tranny, rock and roll, post-punk, motorcycle 5 who was approached and got in the front seat next to me. I didn't blame her for not wanting to sit next to in the back of the drunk guy. Oh, it's you, she said. Yeah, I know a Russian club in the Richmond where they have cocaine and they stay open all night for the right people. Let's go there, but be careful, the men, they are violent. Oh, that's all right. I like violent men, she said. I have to ask my boyfriend. We were supposed to go to his apartment. I was looking forward to fucking all night long. But maybe I can convince him to come with us to visit the Russians. Yeah, you do that, baby. We get some coke. Then he laid back down to the seat and closed his eyes while I idled. The tranny spoke to her boyfriend on her cell phone. Hey, baby, I met this really amazing Latino guy. Me and him really bonded tonight at Divas. I felt like I met someone who could touch my soul. Anyway, he said there's this Russian mafia place or something where you can party all night if you want to. Do you want to come? What did he say? The Latino guy asked. He dumped me, she said. Let's go to your party. Oh, that's okay. You can marry me then, he said. Oh, yeah, right. Like your Spanish Catholic grandmother, I'm sure would be happy to meet me. I'm not Spanish and I'm not Catholico. I'm an atheist and I'm an American. Yeah, but your whole family is Catholic. 95% of the world is Catholic or Muslim, and they all hate people like me anyway. As I drove out to the Richmond, she asked me my least favorite question. Where are you from? I I get so sick of this question. Why does anybody care? Where you are is what is important, and whether or not you're living with humor, style, and wisdom. If I applied more imagination to my job, I'd tell people that my dad was in the Foreign Service and I grew up in Sri Lanka, where as a child I incorporated the bodies of dead water buffalo to whitewater raft down swollen river channels after the hurricanes. The trick was to make sure that the water buffalo's anus was properly sewn tight. Then, of course, there's the old witch in the shack across the ravine filled with corpses who taught me the secrets of Indonesian magic when I saved her from a viper. I'm from Fresno, I said. I'm from Fresno too, she said, genuinely excited. I hate having to remember Fresno. There are actually things I like about the place, like the old rail yards that Jack Kerouac wrote about that are still there, but the weather sucks and the huge homicide rate is like something out of Florida, Texas, or Romania. Where did you go to high school, she asked. Clovis West. Rich kid, snob, she shouted. Hey, relax. I hate most of the people at Clovis West, too. My district was Roosevelt, but my parents were weird, overprotective Catholics who thought I would become a gang member and went to a high school of working people. Your glasses are sexy, she said. The man with whom she had soul bonded was snoring and mumbling in the back seat. Thanks, I said. I thought she was sexy, too, but she had an Adam's apple and liked violent dudes and cocaine, so I didn't pursue it. I let them out at 14th and Geary. You have cocaine? She asked him. Si, tengo mucho, he said. We should get along, honey. We both speak Spanish and French and appreciate culture, she said to him. We should move to Thailand. Fuck this country. It's too self-righteous. She turned around and looked at me and winked as she walked him away. Thank you.
Yep, Joe Donahue. Get his magazine, everyone. Next up, a little song, maybe a dance. Kiera, where are you? Here she comes.
I'm probably not going to need the microphone. So, this is an original song.
By who?
By me.
bring you back up here.
That's okay.
Come on. All right. No. Give her another hand, please. Next up, the reason why I came out tonight. She never made a broken record sound so well. Marilyn Sousa, come on down.
Alright, don't really feel like reading much of mine, but I am going to read one of mine after I finish reading this one. This is called Dogs in Lingerie by Danielle Willis. I masturbated to the midget fucking scene in Opus Pistorum and fell asleep with my tights down around my ankles in my dream. The strip club where I work had begun to hire dogs, big pregnant mongrel bitches with teats hanging down to the ground. There were about 5 or 6 of them sniffing around the lobby when I came in. I stooped down to pet a Malamute in a blonde wig and a green silk negligee, and the desk guy told me not to mess up her hair because she had to dance in 10 minutes. The management had built a separate room for the dog acts. The walls were all hot pink chrome, and the stage was a huge, slowly rotating carousel surrounded by rows and rows of plush seats. The usual afternoon porno crowd was there, about 15 docile older men slumped in their chairs like lobotomy patients clutching flyers, with a picture of a Doberman pinscher in a black rubber dress, arching her back beneath the legend, "Bitches in Heat," as the lights went down and sharp teeth clicked together behind the curtains. So, this one I wrote recently. He saw those tears, and I warned that they were not his to keep. I once stood impressed, proud, for it seemed I had been reformed. But now I lay here sheepish, because those tears were his all along, and I've been reformed, just not the way I should have been. This is one of my favorite poets, Buddy Wakefield, and thanks to technology, I can read it off the internet from my phone. This is called Convenience Stores. We both know the smell of a convenience store at 4 a.m. like the backs of a lot of hands. She sells me trucker crack mini thins like Viver and doesn't make me feel awkward about it. She can tell it's been a long drive and it's only going to get longer. Offers me a free cup of coffee, but I never touch this stuff. Besides, I'm going to need more speed than that. We notice each other's smiles immediately. It's our favorite thing for people to notice, our smiles. It's all either one of us has to offer. You can see it in the way our cheeks stretch out like arms, wanting nothing more than to say, "You are all welcome here." She shows brittle nicotine teeth with spaces between each one. Her fingers are bony, no rings, and she'd love to get her nails done someday. One time she had her hair fixed. They took out the grease, made it real big on top, and feathered it. She likes it like that. She will never be fully informed on some things, just like I will never understand who really buys moon pies or those rolling, wrinkled, dried-up sausages. But then again, she's been here a lot longer than me. She's seen everything from men who grow dreadlocks out of their top lips to children who look like cigarettes. I give her my money, I wait for my change, but I feel like there's something more happening here. I feel like a warm mop bucket and dingy tiles that'll never come clean. I feel like these freezers cannot be restocked often enough. I feel like trash cans of candy wrappers with soda pop dripping down the wrong side of the plastic. I feel like everything just got computerized. I feel like she was raised to say a lot of stupid things about a color. And I feel like if I were to identify myself as gay, this conversation would stop. It's what I do. I feel. I get scared sometimes. And I drive. But in 1 minute and 48 seconds, I'm going to walk out of here with a full tank of gas, a bottle of mini thins, and a pint of milk, while there's a woman trapped behind a Formica counter somewhere in North Dakota who wants nothing more than to hear my whole story, all 92,775 miles of it. I can tell, though, she's heard more opinions and trucker small talk than Santa Claus has made kids happy, so I only find the nerve to tell her the good parts, that she's the kindest thing to happen since Burlington, Vermont, and I want to leave it at that, because men who are not smart have taken it farther, have cradled her up like a nutcracker and made her feel as warm as a high school education on the dusty back road or a beer in a koozie. I feel like she's been waiting here a long time for the one who'll come two-stepping through that door on 18 wheels without making her feel like it's her job to sweep up the net shells alone when she's done been cracked again. A man who won't tempt her to suck the wedding ring off of his dick, but will show her simply love. She doesn't need me or any other man, but she doesn't know that either. And I'm just hoping like crazy she doesn't think I'm the one, because the only time I'll ever see North Dakota again is in a Van Morrison song late at night. I promise. Y'all, I feel like she's 37 years old, wearing 51 badly, dying inside like certain kinds of dances around fires to speak through you, a forest if you weren't so taken with sparks. But she wasn't given those words. She has not been told that she can definitely change the world. She knows some folks do, but not in convenience stores. And not with lottery tickets. So I finally ask her what I've been feeling the entire time I've been standing there, still getting scared like I do sometimes, really, really ready to drive. I ask her, is this it for you? Is this all you'll ever do? Her smile collapsed. That tightly strapped-in pasty skin went loose. Her heart felt crooked. She said, not knowing my real name, I can tell, buddy, by the mini thins and the way you drive that we're both taken with novelty. We both believed in mean gods. We both spend our money on things that break too easily like people. And I can tell that you think you've had it rough. So especially you should know, it's what I do. I dream. I get high sometimes. And I'm going to roll out of here one day. I just might not get to drive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's always nice to have an uplifting truck stop home. Gives me hope. Next up, straight from Sacramento, Janelle, the mic is yours.
I don't want to follow that. Christ, it's not fair. God, what was the name of that poet again? I want to write it right now.
Buddy Wakefield.
Buddy, all right.
It sounds like a blues guy.
I know, it doesn't sound like a real name. That's Buddy Wakefield?
Where
right.
did you find a book by
Thank God I have something a little bit more uplifting. I mean, Christ.
Wow.
It's a rare thing for me.
Ruth?
Eclipse. The sun opens its juiced mouth, swallows the gelatin city in one erogenous gulp. Traffic soup, codfish, and rye siphon through this bare sky. I unzip a green bottle, stretch pagan tentacles to claw swollen sharp wind under the cuspid of metal jackboot wings. Twirl tangled joy eclipses on quick entrail trapezes. Inhale. Grip the tyrant custard womb. The sun opens its juiced mouth. Lifts my bones, my city, a confetti of odd machines. Premature. Your crucifix overcoat face down. Your yawning wound drips down my eclipse, gangrene door, the bottle caps, skulls crushed. I crawl, straitjackets in tight, slim numbers, grown static wire ball gowns and seizure burlesque, wrapped in black lung placentas. I crawl one side of a highway where glances go, to lay like Christmas trees, tied in plastic wombs for miles. Tom right through this. I'm taking that 5 minutes very share the mic because it's here for everybody. And it's selfish not to. Nerve. There's a nerve thrumming that bludgeons this city. A meaty alleyway where dumpsters glow gnarled gullets. There's the vein. It pulls me down past temples, ringing their steel spines against whips of cold throats, past windows. It pulls me down where the molten archway of downtown's hollow tomb strokes catacombs flooded with moonshine. There's a tongue, and there's a vein. That voiceless mason's hand tempts me down to that river of spilled wine, that river black window, there's a vein. I know I would follow you into a churning gray womb, past willow vigils, their vagabonds' lungs burst. I would follow you all the way down to the still, swollen heart.
What's that woman's name?
Janelle?
Janelle.
Yeah.
What?
Very good. Chacones? Yummy. Okay, we're down to our final three that we're sharing the mic with. Next up, Trina. Come on up.
Come on.
From Sacramento?
From Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Yeah, I drove Barry and Janelle up here tonight.
Are they getting home?
Well, if I can still drive, they're going home with me. But, I don't know.
Well, I didn't know about that part of the story.
So this first poem is called Black Widows and LSD. I wondered how I'd know if the spider was a black widow when the red hourglass was on its abdomen. Was I to pick it up, turn it over, and look for the mark? Seemed easy enough, but if I had received a brochure about black widows instead of one about LSD, then I would have known better than to pursue black widows. This is like really weird because I can't see you anyway, and there's like all these lights here, and so it's even more strange, but that's okay. See, I take off my glasses and I can't see you, so.
You don't need to see us.
And you're looking good.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
See, you
I can hear where you're at.
That was Will that said that. What do you later?
This next poem is called Cutting. 1. A 13-year-old girl stumbles downstairs in sleep shirt and shorts, knocks over a picture of someone's relative. Her foot bleeds while her brother imagines clowns dancing and laughing and blowing balloons that look like swords and dragons and poodles. She bandages her foot with a cloth found on the floor by her sister's boyfriend, while her mother yells the girl places her hands over her ears and accepts a glass shard from the boyfriend. 2. She turns 17. Arms and legs bear abstract designs, maps and tails. Right upper thigh and left forearm trace her junior year at the 3rd high school. Left bicep tells of 9 months when she turned 14. The boyfriend's name linked to the dead child. Both calves reveal truths about the scars that bloomed on her back, the monthly black eyes, the Sunday nights spent with her father. The brother no longer dreams of clowns. 3. Now a woman of 32, she stands before a grave, her mother's name carved into granite, dead 8 years. Her father never tends the grave, he still drinks, and the brother dreams of swords and dragons and poodles sliced and burned, and he dreams that he is the dragon, that he can fly, that he holds the sword. 4. She lives in a room in a house with a man they had not married. He had found her collapsed outside of a bar, beaten. And he had taken her home and tended her wounds, and he had washed her hair and cut it, and he had washed her fingers and toes, gliding the washcloth between each digit. And he had placed her in a bed that was not his, and he had pulled the cover up, and he had lit a lamp. That's like my not uplifting one, sorry. So this
We missed it.
Yeah, there was a happy spot there at the end, though. So this last poem came out of a writing workshop that I took a couple of months ago. They asked us to look in our pockets and see what was in there. In my pocket is a lipstick in the shade you always said was too bold for me. I wore hot buttered rum every single day that you were not around. I kissed envelopes, the back of my hand, and that man down the street whose name I no longer recall. I bought 10, no 12, and kept one in each purse, 2 in the bathroom drawer, the one on the upper left that you'd never look in, and 1 in the freezer where you'd never have thought to look. It was always between last week's leftovers and some heat and serve cardboard dinner that you always wanted. Thank you.
NCTV thanks the following station underwriters for their generous support. B&C True Value Home and Garden Center. For more than 60 years, striving to meet the needs of their customers and our community.
This is you. You've been ripped off, or you've spotted a scam. Don't keep it to yourself. Take it to the Federal Trade Commission by filing a complaint. What kind of complaint?